The following program is a presentation of the Options Insider Radio Network. For more programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio in iTunes. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market. From unusual activity alerts to market updates and trading strategies. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block. With your host, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com and co-hosts Mike Tusaw from KnowYourOptionsInc.com and Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com. The Option Block is brought to you by Options Express. Don't spend time worrying about your broker. At Options Express, security, stability, and account protection are the most important responsibilities to our customers. Secure account access, enhanced financial protection, entrusted with over $7 billion in customer assets, established financial stability. Options Express lets you trade with confidence. Stocks, options, and futures, all in one account. Trade with a specialist. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio to open your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
Welcome back to the Option Block, and I hope all of our listeners had a fun and exciting weekend. And I'm sure if you're like the rest of us here on the old Option Block panel, you woke up this morning on Monday with a lot of news in your inbox and a lot of developments breaking in the markets, and we will get to all of those shortly. But first off, my name is Mark Longo, and I am your host for this wandering joyride through the world of options, and I am back from my long sojourn into the dark recesses of the Futures Industry Association conference. And I was going to have a whole bunch of fun stuff to talk about from that conference, but I think recent events have trumped those quite a bit. But I am joined, as always, by the usual cast of characters, starting off with the stand-in host extraordinaire, Uncle Mike Tusaw from Know Your Options Inc. Uncle Mike, fantastic job last week. Technical issues aside, just a stellar job filling in on the old hosting duty, sir.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a lot of fun, and you have a new perspective on things once you go to the different chair, and it kind of makes me think of that time, to give an 80s reference for Sebastian's purposes here, back when Alf hosted the Tonight Show. You remember, you guys see that episode when Alf hosted in place of Johnny Carson? That's kind of how I
missed that one.
I actually met Joan Rivers a couple of weeks ago. Actually, a week ago Thursday. Good, nice lady, taller than I expected.
I'm sure "nice lady" is not the description she has thrown out around her quite a bit.
She was very sweet. So I was impressed.
And listeners, if you can't tell, that is the greasy meatball himself, Mark Sebastian from OptionPit.com, amongst many other endeavors. Mr. Sebastian, how are you doing this fine Monday afternoon?
Well, I would like to comment on Mike Tusaw's comparison of himself to Alf. And first off, he was far more eloquent than Alf as far as a host and as an interesting man running the business. Second off, I think Alf would be insulted by that his debonair good looks would be compared to one young Mike Tusaw. So I think we've got an 0 for 2 there. So I think Alpha, and I think Mike owes Alf an apology.
My apologies go out to Alf. I mean, he was one of my heroes of the 80s, and just all I'm saying is that Alf was no Johnny Carson, and I am no Mark Longo.
You were great. Now, did you see the internet clips of that they caught of Alf? By the way, Tusaw.
I did not.
I'll tell you. If you want to see something disturbing, Google Alf cursing. I'm telling you, it is disturbing in YouTube. It is the most disturbing thing you'll ever see. I mean, really. So, but Anyway, there's that tidbit for today.
Leave it to Sebastian to give us our disturbing YouTube link of the day.
Maybe we could get a lead-in for that. The Sebastian, disturbing YouTube video of the day. Wow.
And, of course, the man in the midst of the maelstrom over at Options Express right now. Surprised he had time to come on the show. So many things are happening and so much news is breaking over there. Of course, he is John Grigas from Options Express. John, welcome onto the show this busy, busy Monday afternoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. It's been a whirlwind day here. Pretty much found out about 10 minutes after I sit my butt in the chair that we're now working for Schwab, or as some people call it a merger, I call it an acquisition, but whatever you call it, we're now working for them. One thing I did want to mention, more important than that, is that if you've never seen Tusa, he does have one thing in common with Alf, and that is he both have the same hair color. I don't know if anyone's ever seen that. Is that right, Mr. Tusa?
Hey, I have the red hair. Alf's a little bit more orangish, I think. There's a big difference.
I wouldn't worry too much about the work front, John. I know Randy Frederick over at Schwab. He's a great guy to work for, so you'll have a great time over there. and our listeners, you know, we have to apologize for all the technical hurdles last week. Like I said, Uncle Mike was so busy focusing on the hosting duties. It's hard to do 18 things at once, and we salvaged as many pieces as we could. I think the early show had some fragments, so some of the good bits and some of Joe Cusick's good little pearls of wisdom are lost to the ether, but we'll have to bring Joe back on the show and do it up proper again. But again, hats off to you, Uncle Mike, stepping into the void there and taking one for the team. And with that, we will roll right into the very action-packed trading block.
The trading block.
And welcome to the trading block. And as we said earlier, it was indeed another yo-yo day in the markets. The market's rallying to the upside. We saw a lot of pushing and shoving around some technical support and resistance levels. S&P trying to get up over that 1,300 level. I'm not sure if it did intraday or not, but it closed down at 1298, up 19 handles. The Dow closed at up 178, and of course NASDAQ up a whole 48 points, and the VIX cash selling off quite a bit, down 15% today, down almost 4 handles on the day. So a lot of activity on that front. And of course, what was driving a lot of this activity? Well, it was the M&A sector today. 2 big deals really being trumpeted as pushing the market north today. Of course, the first one, AT&T picking up T-Mobile, which is important to all the cell phone users out there. And, of course, the other deal, which is much bigger to everyone in this space and much more interesting, I think, to a lot of our listeners in particular, is, of course, that Schwab announced this morning that they were merging/acquiring with Options Express to the tune of a little bit north of $1 billion. And so a very interesting development in the online retail options space. And I know the one that impacts all of us here on this show to varying degrees, and definitely one that I think, we had David Fisher on our other radio show a few weeks ago, and I was poking and prodding him about this very issue and the M&A topic, and we discussed some potential suitors and if Options Express was indeed on the block at the time, and he demurred, as all good CEOs will do. But, he did get a little more into it when the topic of Schwab came up onto the table, so maybe that was an indicator there. Of course, now in hindsight, the old special dividend makes quite a bit more sense that they announced a few weeks ago. But what do you guys, Mike, obviously you have a long-standing relationship with Options Express, and Mark, you've been working with them more recently. What do you guys, just on a general level, what's your initial impressions of the deal?
I think that's one where I've been with Options Express in one way, shape, or form for a majority of its existence, and I'm excited to see what the future brings to it. Schwab's obviously a very reputable firm, and I think that it's a great deal for Schwab with what they're getting. I mean, Options Express is the pioneers of the business. They're the ones that brought option trading to the retail investor, and if they're looking to have their clients that aren't traditionally option traders or don't traditionally use options a lot with what they do, I think Options Express will be a great fit because they changed the world 10 years ago. And if Schwab is looking to have that same service same execution, same everything with their clients that they may not be getting right now, I think it'll be a great fit for Schwab.
Yeah, I tend to agree that it is quite the deal for Schwab, and turns out, for what they're picking up, and we can go back and forth on different issues of valuation, that sort of thing. But what Schwab is getting as a whole is a pretty good package.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. I think that I've been an Options Express fan since the days that I was a client, and I always remember going to my first Options Express event over at the SIBO as a client back when they first started out as a firm, and I just thought it was the neatest thing on earth with just me just being a nobody client that nobody knew, that David Kalt gave me his personal business card and said, if you ever have any questions on anything with your account, call me. And that level of customer service has stayed there through the years, and Options Express, they're the best at what they do, and it's going to be a great thing for Schwab, I think.
What do you say, Mr. Sebastian?
I think they could have sold themselves for more. That's just my opinion. I was surprised that it went so cheap. If just kind of when I look at the deal, I think a billion's sounds like a lot of money until you realize what the growing aspect of the business is, and what kind of infrastructure and what kind of build and value added something like an Options Express brings to a Schwab. I think they're a great fit. But I think just from a personal level, Options Express could have probably sold itself for a little more if they'd wanted to. Not if they'd wanted to, but I think they could have held out for more. That's just my thoughts.
I figured we'd have a 20 handle in there somewhere,
Well, no, I mean, I just think, how much did Thinkorswim go for, a few years back?
I want to say 670 million, something like that.
I think it was around 700. I think around.
You guys are way bigger than them, and your clients have more money, and you've got a much more stable infrastructure, and it's been and option volume has picked up, not fallen, and I don't see, I don't see how the market multiplier doesn't place you guys at $1.5 billion or $2 billion.
That's why I wanted to toss that one to Mr. Sebastian, because obviously he and I have a little bit more more freedom in what we can run off at the mouth.
What do you think, Mark? Do you think they could have gotten more?
Personally, yeah, I was a little surprised to see the valuation myself.
I would have bought them for $1 billion. I think I could have flipped them like a piece of real estate.
I mean, if you wanted to look at how much it would have cost Schwab if they wanted to actively compete with Options Express and kind of try to recapture and rebuild that business, it would have been well north of $1 billion to go into that and try to compete and replicate what Options Express has done. So for them, it is indeed quite a deal. And like I said, I don't want to put Uncle Mike or John in any sort of uncomfortable positions by speculating too long about the valuation levels. But yeah, I was a bit surprised at the level. I was also surprised when I woke up this morning to see my inbox and my voicemail overflowing with questions about why we were cited as the number 2 reason by Schwab for the acquisition. If you look in the press release, it's right up there with, I forgot what the first thing they mention is, and the second thing they mention is the Options Insider Broker of the Year Award. So my next call after the show is over is to pick up the phone and call David and Fisher and say, okay, where is our commission check on this $1 billion deal? So I've been very busy today dealing with all the questions alongside those lines. But interesting deal. Schwab has been active on and off in the option space for a long time, but it has never been a fixture for them. Obviously, I know a lot of the derivatives guys over there. I was joking before, but I do know Randy Frederick and a lot of their derivatives guys, and that core team does take derivatives very seriously, and they do go out to all the shows, and they do present and do a lot of options-themed education. So there has been a core element of the Schwab business that has been pushing on the options front, but the main business has kind of moved towards more the general finance / active investor. So for allowing the ability for Schwab to essentially write a check and move into this most sought-after aspect of the options market or of the financial market and capture this very highly desirable demographic with one kind of fell swoop, I think it was a great move for them. We're already being flooded with questions and emails from our users about what this means for them, and we'll have to wait and see for a little while down the road and see how these things kind of shake out. I'm sure you guys over on the trading desk, John, were pretty busy today, too, with customers calling up saying, what does this mean for my account and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've been sending emails out to all the customers in blocks so we don't get overrun on the phones on the trade desk and in customer service. But, like any merger, it's business as usual until it's not. I think they did get us or obtain us for the execution, and like Tusa said, the customer service. We hope to continue that, and in the meantime, there's not going to be any changes to the platform. If anything, it'll get slightly better with more money in our back pockets.
Yeah, I can't imagine Schwab coming in and buying you guys and then mucking the things up. You don't want to acquire an asset like Options Express and then mess with it. It operates in a very targeted space. It knows that space very well. You guys have built up your entire infrastructure around that. Schwab should just do things that are additive and not get in there and, start mixing and messing with the platform. Look what happened when TD took over at Thinkorswim. There's been a lot of growing pains over there in terms of merging the systems and the platforms and uptime issues over there. So hopefully we won't see a repeat of that on the OX side.
Yeah, no, I agree. I wouldn't mind to see the banking side, more alternatives to that. All we have right now is, Fed funds and a mutual fund sweep. There's a lot of other things we could offer our clients other than the options, and I think Schwab's going to bring a big part to that.
Well, it's an official deal when about an hour or maybe two after the announcement and the release went out, there were already secondary releases announcing potential lawsuits. For valuation.
I know.
They waited about an hour, and that's probably might be the fastest turnaround I've ever seen for the threats of lawsuits on the deal. It wasn't even noon yet. Yeah, it was some law firm out of Texas wanted to get some headlines, I think, saying, I think the rationale they used, I think, was probably the weakest one they could have used, which they said that the deal was done a couple of points below the analysts' consensus target of $21 a share. So if you want to use analysts, that's probably the weakest. That's the weakest argument you could make, I think, for this.
Yeah, you know what regard we hold analysts on this show,
Exactly. Welcome back. Analyst bashing weekly. All right, and that's probably the big deal we want to talk about today. Vol did get smoked today. Sebastian, what were you watching in terms of VIX and SPX downside skew?
It was interesting. We saw April get just jackhammered down. The downside curve held up a little better than at the monies and out of the money calls, but they just thwacked April, and that's why you saw that VIX come in so much. Interestingly, May and June held up pretty well relative to April. I was actually really surprised by how well May and June really held up. So that tells you that, in the very, very short term, I guess they feel like there's nuclear threat maybe is kind of starting to subside, but there's still a lot of underlying fear that I think is going to keep the VIX above 20. You've got Libya, you've got Saudi Arabia, you've got Bahrain, you've got it's Bahraining Vol. Get it? Sorry.
Oh, how I missed this.
Yeah.
No, but so what I'm seeing is that that in general, not only is the VIX kind of higher than it was, 3 weeks ago, but if you look back to about the time we were at 1300, the absolute increase in volatility. In other words, there's a big difference between 20% volatility and an $1,100 SPX and 20% volatility and a $1,300 SPX. That 20% implies a lot more absolute movement. And that's something I think people forget, is that the more expensive the product, the more, small upticks in volatility really have a dramatic effect. And so don't get the feeling that just because we're at 20 now that we're at the same place we were at when we got down to 20 the last time when we were below 1,200. No, I think vol and fear in general is definitely felt an uptick. I don't know. Are you guys kind of feeling the same thing in the market? That just a slight uptick in just general fear?
How could you not?
Yeah,
I mean, there's so much going on right now. Sorry.
Yeah, with everything, yeah. When you have the next Chernobyl, you have the next Gulf War, you have history looking to repeat itself in several bad fronts in different parts of the world, without a doubt, yes.
Yeah, To the Shores of Tripoli will have all new meaning again. We'll have to revise that old Marine Corps fight song.
Oh, yeah.
So, Sebastian, why did the VIX give up so much? I mean,
it was,
we have all these things.
It was a combination of one, sliding up the curve, like as I know the guys here know that, but a lot of people don't know. You can have vol remain completely unchanged, and if the SPX rallies 20 handles, you're going to see the VIX in about a point and a half regardless. And that's because the way the VIX is calculated is that it's a Vega-weighted index. And so by moving up the skew curve, you're just weighting a lower volatility more. On top of that, we saw upside get smoked. So we saw, the 1330s, the 13 quarters, the 1350s. We saw that vol really get compressed. We saw at the money vol get compressed as well, and we saw a small shift down on the skew curve. But in general, the curve, the put side held up. Of anything, the puts held up, but even they were in a little bit. So that's what I was seeing in the VIX.
Yeah, the typical upside rally, crush the upside the second we see any good news, any movement type of thing that you see in a lot of individual equities perform the same way too, and the VIX is no exception. Everyone thought going into the weekend that it was the end of the world, and when Chernobyl 2 didn't happen and everything else like that, and we saw all these M&A deals and the market rallied, time to crush. Speaking of VIX, one of the interesting things I always look forward to personally whenever I go down to the Futures Industry Association conference in Boca, aside from the getting out of Chicago in March and going to Florida, is every year the SIBO sees fit to take a few of us and drag us in at 7 o'clock in the morning to hear the latest about VIX. And we had a whole fun VIX morning last week where we got to hear all about the new individual name VIX products. And have you guys had a chance to mull these over at all? We talked a little bit about them before when they were abstract indexes, but this might be the fastest I've ever seen the SIBO move from an abstract index to a tradable product. I mean, they just launched these, announced the individual name indices probably back in January, and already now they filed for tradable products. So I think the initial names are Amazon, Google, Apple, one or two others in there, I believe, but very large liquid names, and they're going to try to replicate the VIX methodology on an individual name basis. I know we talked about it.
Now, are they going to? But now, how the interesting thing to see here is, since it's not going to be like a VIX future, what is the product going to expire into?
Yeah, I'd imagine it's going to be just a pure cash settlement like it is on SPX and the non-quarterlies.
It actually may be a better direct hedge of like Amazon vol than VIX options are of SPX vol.
That's what I was kind of mulling over as I was looking at some of the methodology they're using for this and some of we've obviously downplayed this a bit in the past because the obvious question is, why do you need this? If you're a sophisticated trader, you can get all the implied vol you need just straight through the options. But it is interesting, obviously from a branding perspective for the SIBO to extend the VIX brand, but also from a potential to have perhaps a more pure hedge on the underlying vol, as well as just the ability to have a secondary source of volatility to hedge with and to trade with in these underlyings as opposed to just the options. And it'll be interesting to watch when these list the interplay between these and the front month and the weeklies and how the vol bounces off and arbs between one and the other. It should be pretty interesting.
Yeah, because when people often get smoked doing straddles into earnings announcements, a lot of beginning traders, and maybe this would be a way with which they'll do a straddle and then simultaneously buy a put on the vol of a specific underlying. So there's going to be a lot of new opportunities out there if this product catches on, that's for sure.
Is this going to be a SIBO proprietary product?
Oh, yeah. Anything with VIX on it is owned lock, stock, and barrel by the SIBO.
We got to pay them to trade it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, so it will be interesting. Like Mike said, I think this is an interesting tool as well for, earnings announcements. So I think for that reason alone, they're an interesting product to watch. And I'm sure a lot of our users on the institutional and the high-end retail side will be interested in maybe giving these a try and taking them for a spin around next earnings season if they're available. All right, and with that, I think we're going to close out the old trading block and roll right into the odd block.
The Odd Block.
And welcome to the Odd Block. This is the section of the show where we discuss the interesting and or unusual, and some might say darn right sexy, activity that we're seeing out there. At least Tucson likes to say that a lot. I'm not sure if anybody else says that. But, the downright sexy activity we're seeing in the market today. And we're going to kick things off, not quite surprisingly, with XLE, the old Energy Select Spider, closed today at $77.68, up $2.29. This is a name that does about 83,000 contracts a day. It did about 90,000 today. And not surprisingly, given what we've seen over the past week in the energy markets and the energy sector, we're starting to see a few bulls peek their cautious heads out of the woodwork today and make some bullish upside bets in XLE. A lot of it was in call spreads, so they're mitigating some of their exposure there, primarily in April. And let's see, that looks like the April 78.82 call spread was the big name of the day. It went up 6,000 times for a net of $1.20 a contract. So obviously these guys are looking for an upside rally in XLE of about 2% of where it closed today. So these guys obviously looking for Japan not to become Chernobyl 2 and to have the energy sector probably make a little bit of a rally in light of maybe some of the concerns being overplayed out there between Libya and Saudi Arabia and now Japan, kind of a 1-2-3 punch to the energy sector. These guys, at least a few of them out there saying, hey, maybe this is overdone. We're going to pick up some upside. I know some of you guys follow XLE. What have you guys been seeing out there?
I think the Japan thing could actually be a benefit to XLE with a lot of the energy stocks just because of natural gas and oil going up from it as Libya and Japan, I should say. So is it going to be a huge benefit? Well, not necessarily. But I guess my point is that even if we do have more bad things to come there, it might not harm XLE as much as it could harm the rest of the market in general. I like this trade.
Yeah, I know you've been a big proponent, I think, of XLE in the past, as well as some of the individual component names, particularly the nat gas names. That's your bailiwick. No jokes. All jokes aside. But yeah, so interesting.
I never knew I had a bailiwick. I mean,
well, it is a little bit after St. Patty's Day, so you got to throw in the Irish every now and then.
There you go.
Our next name here, Velasys Communications, and the ticker symbol is VCI. They closed at $27.51, up a dime. This is a name that does about 1,200 contracts a day, so not exactly lighting up the tape. They did about 4,000 contracts today, so a strong volume day for good old Velasys Communications. And, of course, the tone of most of this activity was bearish. It's like we saw one sizable trader coming in, picking up a put spread. He picked up 1,500 of the June 27 half puts, and he sold 1,500 of the 22 half puts. So he did it for, looks like about $1.80, 1,500 times. So that accounts for 3,000 of the 4,000 plus contracts we saw today going up in Velasys. So for a name like this with such small open interest and such small ADV, this is a pretty substantial trade. This guy's looking for VCI to take a hit of about 6.5% over the today's close to make this trade start making some money for him. This is, like I said, a small communication stock, not one that I widely follow, but it looks like this guy is willing to put his money where his mouth is and take a decent downside position. He could be obviously a shareholder looking to hedge himself against some near-term downside as well. Given the fact that it is a June spec, it might make me lean closer to the fact that this guy might be a shareholder and he's looking to pick up some protection through mid-year as opposed to just a straight downside spec that the thing's going to drop. What do you say, Senor Sebastian?
Yeah, that's kind of would be my thoughts too. You never know with these guys, but and who's trading what, but that probably makes some sense. It's such an unknown name that you never, it could be a bearish bet, it could be a protection. If I had to bet just based on the open interest, it could be somebody rolling down some protection, or yeah, you might be right. I mean, who knows is really what it comes down to.
Exactly. Those are some of the fun ones. We like to throw that in there just because it is a new name and it is an interesting one to keep an eye on for future reference. And then rolling right into Sebastian's bailiwick, to use that term again, into the retail sector. And not Chico's, unfortunately, but one that is almost as fun and almost as exciting and, dare I say, sexy yet again. It's Express, EXPR.
Oh, nice.
It closed today at $17.40, up 30 cents. And, Sebastian, I'd like to throw in a nice retail name for you whenever I can find it here.
Oh, I love me some Express.
On the site. And this one picked up, it was one of our contributors. They showed up on their hot options volume scanner this morning, And obviously earnings are coming up for Express. They believe they're ahead of the bell tomorrow. So by the time our listeners hear this, the earnings will already be out. So that's obviously driving a lot of this activity we're seeing in Express. This is the name that does about, wow. According to this, the average daily volume in Express is 150 contracts a day.
Wouldn't put it past them.
That either that's wrong or that's impressively little. And
no, I'm looking at the open interest, and nobody, they sell more jeans in a single day than they do option contracts.
That might be
over a given year.
That might be a record for the lowest ADV we've cited on the show so far, 150 contracts. So today's 3,300 then is an explosion of volume. This is
it's impressive.
This is unheard of levels for Express. I had to do a double take on that, make sure I had the right name, and pull it up again just to make sure I was 150 contracts. But yeah, we saw 2,400. Well, that's huge numbers of the April. Get ready for it. The $16.94 strike. Had to do a double take on that one, too, to make sure I was in the right ballpark there. 2,400 of those went up today on an open interest of just 312. So a lot of opening bullish activity on Express going into earnings. Not surprisingly, this is bumped up a lot of the implied vol, both with earnings and with this buying activity, up about nearly 20% today, just by noon. So bulls out in force right now, and given the open interest and general ADV numbers in Express, is seriously out in force in Express right now. Sebastian, is this one of the retail ones that you follow?
You know what? It's not one that I follow based on the fact that it doesn't trade. And really, if you're playing Express, you're playing limited brands, because limited brands, even if Express has its own tracking stock, so does Victoria's Secret, so do a couple other ones, Abercrombie and Fitch. They're all primarily owned by limited brands. So Express, the stock, the reason why is that, you'd really want to go to LTB. What is limited? LMT?
LTD.
Oh, there you go. Limited Brands is the primary owner of Express. So, there's really no reason to look at Express. You want to look at limited brands if you're looking to play, because if Express is going well, that means the limited brand as a whole is going well, because it's the same chocolate poured into different.
It's the Old Navy, Gap, Banana Republic line of categories of how much money you want to spend.
Exactly. But Express, limited brands is just chosen to issue individual stocks, which I'm not 100% certain why they feel like they want to do that, but that is what they've done in this instance.
Interesting activity going on out there in Sebastian's favorite good old Express. And then,
I'm actually wearing a pair of Express khakis right now.
I thought you were going to say underwear or something else like that. So you went to a better place than I thought.
I bought a nice pair of black slacks from there the other day. I was really pleased with them. Their prices went up substantially, and the store was busy, so that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, like I said, I used to like them back in the structured days. I haven't been back since they rebranded themselves as Express for Men a while ago. Yeah, and just to close out the old odd block really quick today, we talked, just an activity review, we talked about a month ago now about a little name we call THC and how they had some interesting, if not shady, call volume going up. This is a little name that traded around $7 and traded no activity whatsoever. And we saw about 30,000 of the March 7s go up for around 20 cents in the space of a couple of days. And it certainly screamed like an insider was picking these things up ahead of some M&A activity. Turns out that trade didn't work out too well for him. The stock closed at $7 and a penny on Friday. So those March calls went out worthless. Not surprisingly, this guy hasn't given up though, despite the fact that he's already committed about $600,000 to this down the hole. He rolled out some of them. About 10,000 have gone up now in the April 7s for about 14 cents or roundabout so far. We've also seen a sizable roll, about close to 30,000 or so coming up now in open interest in the May 7 strike. So this guy is doubling down on his bet on the 7 strike in THC. It looks like he probably has some followers now who are following on his coattails as well, because the volume is going up out there. So the March bet, just to review, the March bet didn't pay off too well for THC, but so they're looking for increased open interest now on the April and May 7 strikes. Looks like they're doubling down and looking for a continued potential upside pop in THC. Whoever this insider is, he didn't have his timing right, and it cost him about $600,000. But now he's back in the game, and he's doubling down for April and May. So one other one to keep on the old radar, THC, as we close out this edition of the Odd Block and roll right into the old Express Block.
The Express Block, brought to you by Options Express. Options Express lets you trade where and when you want for every level of trading. From advanced charting, free daily trading ideas, and free educational resources, Options Express is the online broker for all traders. Best of all, Options Express allows you to trade stocks, options, and futures all in a single account on powerful yet easy-to-use trading platforms, including mobile devices. Visit optionsexpress.com/OXradio for your free account. Options Express is a member of FINRA, SIPC, and NFA.
And welcome to the Express Block. This is the section of the show where John Grigas tells us his real thoughts on the Options Express acquisition. No. And followed promptly by John Grigas' last days at Options Express.
We have fielded some calls. I think a few calls today from people that are worried. You know, they came to us from Schwab, or they came to us from the other big Fidelities and big broker-dealers out in the industry because they wanted a more personal feel. They wanted to recognize the person's name that they talk to on a daily basis. I mean, we only have about 20 brokers here, so some people that call in 5-6 times a day, they actually do develop relationships. We've had customers go out to lunch and dinner with some of our brokers, which seems unusual, probably unheard of at the Schwab or Fidelity. I have some of these people that call and leave messages over the weekend, tell me what's going on. That the core of our business, our customers, and options technology is not going to change. All the money we've sunk into the website and the tools that we have out there are going to remain. If anything, the speed at which we turn them out and the speed at which we improve the issues and the feedback we get from our customers is going to increase. I had a lady that was really complaining to me, and I told her it was like renting from a landlord. You have a new landlord in the house. He's going to spruce it up a little bit, but the core fundamentals of our business are going to remain the same. I can only tell you that right now. You'll have to see the actions and see the changes, and hopefully I'm correct. But I truly believe that's what's going to happen.
All right, that's going to do it for the old Express Block, and we're going to roll right into our new segment, the Listener Questions.
Listener mail. Listeners write in.
Mail's in.
Mailbox.
And welcome to the Listener Questions segment, Listener Questions Block. I think the name is self-explanatory. And we're going to kick things off here with a question from Down Under. And good old Dave Collins writing in from Sydney. And he wants to know, he said, "Hi, Mark. I keep hearing the OX guys talk on the Option Block radio show about OX Social. I have an OX account here in Australia, but there is no link I can see to OX Social. Also, our local OX rep said the OX Social was not even released yet. It was in beta to a select number of customers. So I hope you're able to clarify this one on your next radio show with someone from OX. Many thanks. P.S. Love the show." So here's our fans in Australia writing in to want to know, when are they going to get their hands on the OX Social, John?
Well, Dave Collins, and thanks for the question. And Mark, I think this is a great segment, so I hope to see it on a future show. Dave, I do have a question for you. When is Crocodile Dundee 3 coming out? You can get back to me at JGrigas@OptionsExpress.com. When we roll out new features, we do roll it out in segments, and Australia has not been on that segment yet. We do it internally, and we do it on Virtual Trade. We did not do OX Social on Virtual Trade just because it's not a trading functionality. It's more of a social function of the website. So we rolled it out internally. I have it on my website. We began rolling it out domestically. When they do a release, and this one was 8.2 release, they don't just throw it out there to everyone at one time. They roll it out in segments. We'll do internal, domestic, then we'll do European, Asian, Canadian, and then Australian, but it's in a certain order. I do have your name here. I can pull up your account, and what I'll do is I will find out the exact date, and I'll personally email you.
Oh, there you go, Dave, your personal email. So thanks for that, John. Our next question on the old Listener Questions segment is actually one we've received quite a bit in different formats since we started doing the show. And I'll attribute this latest one to one of our old stalwarts in the forum. He's been around for years. He goes by the handle Monkey Boy, a great handle. And he wants to know, what analytics platforms do you guys use on the show? And the question is, I would like to know what platforms you guys use to perform real-time options analysis during the program. For example, when Mark Longo pulls up a name to discuss unusual activity, or when Mark Sebastian discusses the term structure of a particular name. I know the OX guys probably use the OX platform, but what other tools do you guys have in your toolboxes? And well, Monkey Boy, I will kick the ball off here. And quite often when I'm looking at names, or I'm looking at activity, or average daily volume, or skew, or charts, or other things, one of the quickest tools I like to pull out of my old toolbox is LiveVol. I have that running usually throughout the show to pull up names quite a bit. And if you want to check it out for yourself, it is at livevolpro.com. I believe their subscription rate, they've just changed their pricing around a little bit, but it's around $250 a month, I believe. But what that gives you is access to a variety of analytics in one place, as opposed to having to go to one broker for this and some other place for that. And you can pull up a lot, particularly on the activity front. It's very useful for scanning by volume, for scanning by changes in open interest. And they have a lot of fun little stats. When you pull up a name, you can see things like net deltas, net premium, what percentage of the calls and puts were sold on the bid versus bought on the offer. You can track time and sales very easily. That's a very valuable thing. Not too many apps make it easy to parse and search through the time and sales data, but it is fairly easy to do on the LiveVol platform. So I'm a big fan of using LiveVol. Sebastian, I know you like the LiveVol stuff as well, correct?
I'm a big fan of LiveVol. I do use some iVolatility. I'll use Thinkorswim. Sometimes I use Options Express a lot.
What's that last one? I've never heard of that last one. Say that again.
Yeah. Options Express. Well, they're actually called Schwab now.
Low blow. You're lucky John isn't here.
We'll see. We'll see. I would not be, just as a side note, I might be interested in buying options in Options Express because I have a feeling they're going to have to change the price. Just as the more I look at this thing, the more I think that this thing is going to have to go for a higher price. But because you'd be crazy not to be a broker and come in with a hostile bid for $1 billion.
I imagine before they announce this, though, they have some breakup fee built into that now, So if someone else comes in.
Yeah, I think it said $40 million is what I thought I heard on the conference call.
$40 million?
Okay.
$40 million's nothing.
That's not that much.
No, based on the levels we think, you'd be, some of these other brokers would be silly not to do this, like not an E-Trade, not a Schwab, but
what if TD added them to the stable on top of Thinkorswim?
I don't know that they got the pockets for that. I
don't think they do either, but it would be interesting.
What about one of the an RBC, a Merrill Lynch, because one of the ones that doesn't have a lot of an online presence, that's looking to get an online presence, this actually might be an even better fit for them.
Yeah, looking to expand on the domestic front as well. Yeah, they want to come after the U.S. market a bit and just pick up this very targeted chunk of the market.
Like, why wouldn't ING do this?
Yeah, that would make sense for them. I think it makes sense for a lot of people. Yeah, $40 million. I would think the breakup fee would have been higher than that. Maybe it's time to take a Sebastian flyer, pick up a good nickel call on OXPS.
OXPS, and I know this isn't right, but I do like Options Express, and, if you think something like that could happen, the 20 calls for 15 cents, it's not a bad buy in May, or the 18 calls for 85 cents in June. I've seen worse than that. Heck, buy the June 18, sell the September 20s. That's an interesting play. There's a lot of different plays out there, but getting back to the analytics though, I do like iVolatility. I like Options Express. I trade on as an educator, I have to know a lot of different platforms. So I trade on 4 or 5 different platforms, but 2 I use primarily from an execution standpoint are, I like Options Express. I like Thinkorswim, and I actually like TradeMaster probably as probably my third place guy. So that's where I'm at, if you want me to be blunted.
Tusa, I'm assuming you use primarily OX platform stuff?
Yeah, pretty much everything that we need is on the OX platform. Or a lot of times we kind of I see things in the reverse way that Mark sees them, and that I'll be doing a trade and I'll say, like when I'm doing something like on a ratio on gold or silver or on Apple, I'll say, okay, this month looks better than this month, so we're going to do it the collar this way. And then later on the show, almost without fail, Sebastian says, did you see the vol skew in this, that, or the other? And I'm like, oh yeah, I did, but not quite in the way that you saw it. It was kind of a reverse engineered thing. Yeah, I'd say primarily what we use is the Options Express or Brokers Express.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about my June 18 SEP 20 call spread?
Not able to comment on that one.
Mark Long, what do you think? That's an interesting play. Right? You do that 2x3. That could be a really interesting play. Your net cash out. If you did that 2x3 and did it, 55 by 85, your net cash outflow is 0. As long as the buyout price isn't above 23.5, you're in great shape.
You said June 18, SEP 20, 2x3 is what you're thinking?
Yeah, something like that.
Interesting. I'll have to...
Short Vega, long Gamma. You've got a ton of upside. And because where does that buyout price peg them right now? Just under 18?
Yeah, like 17 and the quarter or something like that.
Yeah. So that might be an interesting play.
And we do have one last question/comment coming from another old-time user in the forum, good old Delta Trader. His comment was, please keep doing the option block. That was the title of his thread.
I love that.
I'm sure I speak for many of your listeners when I say that I love the show, and I hope that you keep doing it for a long time. I hope today's announcement doesn't signal an end to OX's and, in parentheses, and now Schwab's commitment to creating quality options content, both for the existing customers and for potential new customers. The Option Block and other Option Insider Radio Network shows are my favorite programs on iTunes. Let's hope Schwab realizes their importance and continues to support them going forward. And good old Delta Trader, like I said, this news just broke today, so we don't have any information on that. But everything I know from the guys over at OX and the guys over at Schwab, they do understand the value of this kind of thing and what we're doing, and the value to them both, as driving new customers, keeping existing customers interested, and it's something to come back to the site and keeping them invested with the brand and the platform beyond when they're just sitting at their computers. I think the savvier people at both firms understand that, and I don't think the option block will be going away anytime soon.
Hopefully not. It'll be a sad day.
That would be a sad day indeed.
And I agree. I think that'd be, like they said, one of the reasons why they bought the product was because of the option insider. And I would pull out this, though, of our program. Go out and go to iTunes and give us a couple of positive reviews.
Yeah, exactly. You're all welcome to come in and give us reviews and give us positive reviews in iTunes, and surf on over to the forum and do all of the other interaction ways that we've touted on recent shows and that you hear the announcer tout in the intro and the outro. And I think that's going to do it for this episode of the Option Block, primarily due to the static. It's hard to hear you guys. So with that, we're going to wrap up this episode. I want to thank the usual cast of characters who are coming back on the show with me again today. And starting off with you, Uncle Mike Tusaw, a.k.a. Mr. Host Extraordinaire. What do you have coming up at Know Your Options, Inc.?
A couple things. We have webinars coming up on Sunday night and Monday night as per usual. But the main thing that we have going, I'll be guest speaking in Orlando this weekend. So if you are in Orlando, Options Express is having an event. You can see it at the Options Express website. I will be guest speaking there. And if anyone is in the Orlando area, I'd love to meet you in person. Stop on by.
And then, Mr. Sebastian, what is coming up over at OptionPit.com?
I've got two things going on. One, I'm going to be all over the place. To see what we're doing, go to OptionPit.com/events. Our free webinar that we did went over unbelievably well. We had over 250 people register, thanks in large part to the Option Insider. And we're running a special thanks to the Option Insider. If you use code OI11, it will take $65 off of the price of their first month of our L1 membership, which is our group mentoring and website access. Now, if you send me an email and say, Mark, I want to sign up for 6 months of this, I will send you our L2 prep course, which we were selling for $599 for free, the recordings. I'll let you have the recordings for free. It is an unbelievable deal. So remember that, OI11, and then shoot me an email and check us out. But in the meantime, make sure you check out our website, our blog, the whole 9 yards. And, again, write something nice about the show. It's great.
Yeah, we always appreciate the good feedback, and glad to hear that you had such a good turnout on the webinar. That's a fantastic turnout. Yeah. And I want to thank all of our listeners today for downloading and subscribing and listening and streaming this show and making it such a hit. And don't worry, the option block isn't going anywhere anytime soon. And we'll see you next time right here on the option block.
Become a part of the Option Block. Just visit www.theoptionsinsider.com/forum to post a question for the hosts. You can also submit questions to twitter.com/optionblock or leave a voicemail at 312-544-9356. Make it interesting and your question just might make it on the air. The Options Block is property of the Options Insider Incorporated. All rights reserved.